The Aggies landed four-star linebacker Jordan Lockhart. I believe he's going to play early and often in his Texas A&M career.
You are Locked On Aggies, your daily podcast on the Texas A&M Aggies. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome on in the Locked On Aggies. I'm your host, Andrew Stefaniak. Thanks for making Locked On Aggies your first listen every single day. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, the official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn today to get started. Before we get in and talking about these two recent commits, of course, Lockhart, who we just spoke about for a moment, and Coen Echols, who we'll get into in our second segment today, we have to talk about the tragic loss of Coach Terry Price. All I want to say about the situation is just Coach Price was an amazing human being, an amazing football coach, an amazing person who put smiles on faces on a day-to-day basis. So Coach Price, it was pretty amazing seeing all the former players come out and talk about how much Coach Price meant to them. Myles Garrett included. I saw some recruits tweeting things out. It's tragic. It's a truly tragic situation. But Coach Price, just an incredible human being, someone who represented Texas A&M perfect on a day-to-day basis. So Coach Price, rest in peace. And of course, all of Aggie land is with Coach Price's family through this tough time. So a couple housekeeping things before we get rocking and rolling today. Real quick is first, I am going to be on a fishing trip in the Key West next week. So we're only going to have a few episodes next week. I wanted to let everybody know early and, quick into the episode. So I just want to let everyone know that real quick. I'm going to be out of town, only a couple episodes next week. I'll remind everybody as we get through the week. But Jordan Lockhart, four-star linebacker. He's going to play early and often in his Texas A&M career. And here's why. Watching the tape, the talent and the football IQ and the raw tackling ability, it is all there for someone that he can come in and play just like that. Positions like linebacker, defensive line, offensive line, I talk about this a lot, but I feel like you kind of have to develop into your body. You have to develop into that college football body that, you're ready to go get somebody, hit somebody hard. And Lockhart, I think, of course, 6'3", 230 pounds. He's got some, he's going to have to develop into his body a little bit. But when you watch the tape, this kid doesn't look like a high school football player. It's just, the football IQ, genuinely, and that's a term I feel like people throw out loosely. But when I watch people play football, when I watch people play sports in general, you can kind of pick up on the different inner workings, the different strategies, the different things that go into a play, go into a game. And, playing defense, playing linebacker, there's a lot that goes into it. But Lockhart, it's just every play he was in the right spot. So there was one play where the opposing team kind of ran a screen. It was a weird looking screen play on this huddle tape on the 24/7 Sports, but weird looking screen play. So Lockhart kind of drops back into coverage, reads it like a book in half a second, and then just hammers the wide receiver, running back, whoever was catching this pass. And what was so amazing about this, I don't know if it ended up, they kind of cut the clip. I don't know if it ended up being, I think it was incomplete. I don't think the guy had possession, but he read this like a book. He dropped back into coverage. He saw what was happening, and he just pounced. That play was one of them. The other thing I love to see linebackers is I love to see when linebackers don't get caught up in the offensive and defensive line. So there was a play where the running back kind of started on the left side of the offensive line, saw there wasn't much room, and tried to cut back to the right. Lockhart was able to kind of avoid the mess of the trenches to, keep getting around offensive linemen, getting around them, because of course they're trying to get up to the linebackers to create a hole for the running back. And he just kept bouncing off the offensive lineman and was able to make this tackle. And this wasn't one play. This was like 4 or 5 plays. He did this same thing, this great technique where he was able to bounce off of offensive linemen, his own players. There's a lot of people hitting each other around, the line of scrimmage. So as a linebacker, you have to steer clear of that and, be smart with your zone coverage, be smart with, staying in your gaps and doing everything right there. And so it stood out to me that he was able to move alongside and still make these plays and still make the, he was able to make tackles after the offensive line kind of was moving and shifting. So I think that stood out to me. We see that along the linebackers. You'll say, well, how did that running back break free? How did that run turn into a 42-yard touchdown? And you'll watch the replay and you'll see a linebacker almost getting ready to make a play. And then he gets hit by a lineman or he gets caught in a group of people. And so he's able to kind of work around that, which really stood out to me. He also gets after the quarterback well. He looked great. He took on some tackles in some of these different plays on this highlight tape I watched. It really stood out to me how he was able to get to the quarterback. And I think that's what stood out to me was the completeness of his game. He stops the run. He can kill you in coverage. He can get after the quarterback and everything he does. Like, obviously now I get it. When you're watching a highlight tape, it's highlights. You know what I mean? You're not seeing the bad plays or the misreads and stuff like that. So I know that there's some stuff there. But seeing this tape, what immediately stood out to me is that the bones are there for him to be an elite linebacker at the next level. And the reason one of the other reasons I think he's going to play early on in this Texas A&M career is because, first of all, it's a position that, don't have a ton of depth in currently going into this season. Chris Russell's a senior. Jaron Cooper's a junior. So, your guys right now are not going to be here much longer. You got some young, I know you got some younger linebackers on the team. You got a couple transfers in the portal. You got Tristan Jernigan committed currently, as well as Lockhart in the 2024 class. But, to kind of wrap all that up on this, it's like it is possible for him to come in and play early on in his career just because I think he's just such a sound linebacker. And you can watch players and you can be like, well, this guy has elite speed and this guy has elite strength and this guy has this. I think what Lockhart has is he just has a little bit of everything. He is what's that saying? Something of all trades, master of none. You know what I mean? He's great at everything that comes with being a linebacker, and all there is room to improve. It's just everything on this tape that he did was impressive. And once again, I get it. It's a highlight tape. They're not going to show the plays where you get pancaked by a 6'8" left tackle and, stuff like that. But the tape stood out to me, and I watched a lot of tape on high school recruits. Every time Texas A&M offers a kid or goes after a kid, I watch the tape. And then, of course, when they commit, I watched it again. So I rewatched the tape today on Lockhart. But, genuinely, I watched this tape, and it was just like, wow. He just looks like a player that is college ready, and he's still got another year of high school left. So he's ranked 368th nationally according to 24/7 Sports. That seems like a number which of course 4-star player, but I think he can move up from these rankings with a good senior season. California kid. He chose Texas A&M over Bama, Ole Miss, USC, and tons of other great football programs. So this is a big win for the Aggies, a big win for Coach Fisher. It's a big win to go and beat Bama and Ole Miss and USC. Beating those teams for a recruit, it's a big deal. So bringing in another blue chip guy, you love to see that. The class currently sits at 30th with the addition of Lockhart and Echols, who we'll talk about here in a moment. But, to kind of sum all this up on Lockhart, he's a sound linebacker who knows how to play the position well. He knows where to be. He knows how to be in the right position at the right time, and he just is crisp at everything he does. And as I said multiple times, and I stand by it, I do believe he's going to play early on into his career in Texas A&M. He's that good, and I think his ceiling is pretty dang high. So I'm excited to see what Lockhart is able to do during his time playing for the Aggies. Coen Echols. This big old offensive guard is a player who I think the rankings don't quite do justice. Baseball season is in full swing, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's up to $1,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. Just go to FanDuel.com/lockedon today to join. Speaking of FanDuel, it's futures bet time. It's baseball time. Those of you that are baseball fans, are the Rangers going to win the World Series? Are the Astros going to win the World Series? What do we think? If we think it, go put a future bet on it. No sweat first bet. Those of you that aren't big baseball fans, it's we're college football, NFL future bets right around the corner. Who's going to win Super Bowl MVP? Is Connor Wegman going to win the Heisman Trophy? If you think so, no sweat first bet up to $1,000. If it doesn't hit, you get your money back. Go check it out. So don't miss your chance to snag a no sweat first bet up to $1,000 when you join FanDuel today. Just go to FanDuel.com/lockedon to sign up. FanDuel, official partner of Major League Baseball. So back to some of these talented recruits. Coen Echols, 3-star interior offensive lineman, Texas native, 6'3", 285 pounds. This guy should be ranked higher, and I'm going to tell you why right now. And it has a lot to do with what we said about Lockhart. The form, the athleticism, the pure skill at just playing offensive line is there. The strength, he's great getting off double teams. He plays tackle in high school. He can play anywhere on the offensive line. It's all there. I think offensive linemen, you watch tape. One thing, I'm a big believer that stars, you can kind of throw them out the window when it comes to offensive linemen. I think it's a position where it is very dog-esque. Do you have that dog in you, or do you not have that dog in you? And Echols has that dog in him. And I can say that with pure confidence after watching this 4-minute highlight tape. It's just, he just bulldozes people. He's got these quick feet. He drives with quick feet. He gets to players first. He solidifies contact first. And the other thing I love to see, and I think I already made a little bit of comment on it, but is the coming off double teams. He chips and gets up. He can chip and then get up to linebackers. A player like this, and one thing I always say is this: look at offer lists. Look at offer lists. Interior offensive lineman is a position where you're not going to be ranked as high as tackles. It's just kind of how recruiting works. Interior offensive linemen, except for the top end of the top end, do not get ranked as high as tackles. It's just the reality of the situation. So Echols, look at the offer list. Let's read through it. Let's read through a handful of these teams that have offered Echols. Ole Miss, Utah, Purdue, Oregon, LSU, Cal, Auburn. I mean, all these teams, Power 5 programs, a lot of these teams are trying to get after this offensive lineman. His offer list wouldn't look like this if people didn't think he was talented. It would look like, Bowling Green and, WKU and stuff like that. It's just, this is an offer list of a player who Division I football coaches think is underrated. Echols is an underrated recruit. This happens a lot with interior offensive linemen, as I said. He's a guy, I think he could play like Lockhart early in his career. The offensive line, currently, the offensive line is a position less like linebacker, where you got your handful of older guys, you got your handful of younger guys. But at the end of the day, you got to have 5 of them, and you got to have 5 good ones. And if you don't have 5 good ones, your offensive line your offense is going to struggle as a whole. You have to have talented offensive linemen. You have to have depth. So does Echols play early on in his career? I think he has more to do than a guy like Lockhart. So, my statement was this: Echols is an underrated player, and that is an undebatable fact in my opinion. It's just, the tape does not look like the guy who's ranked 738th nationally. The tape, the feet are too quick. He's too strong. He does the shot put. So he's strong as all be. Strong offensive lineman, plays at one of the better high schools in Texas. well, of course, we all know Texas high school football has you better prepared than anywhere else. So Echols is a guy who he's underrated. And I think one more season, his senior season, I think he has a chance to kind of take a step up in the rankings. And once again, when I say step up, he's not going to move up to 300. He's not. I don't think he's going to even move up to be a 4-star. But I do think he could, move up to the mid 600s, something to where, you at least see, okay, this guy's moving in the right direction. But frankly, I don't care if he moves up in the rankings. He can move down in the rankings. It doesn't bother me one bit because he's a talented offensive lineman. The tape I watched proves it. His offer list proves it. The excitement from the fans on Twitter when he committed proves it. This is not your average 3-star. And I think if I had to pick a position that I care less about, that I could care less about stars, it's offensive line. Because I think it's a mentality. I think it has to do with some things that are just kind of natural, and that's your size, height and weight, and the natural dog in you. Like I always joke, I played a couple years of high school football before of course, baseball ended up being my thing. And I knew football well. I knew the offense I ran in well. I knew all this stuff well, but what I didn't have was that, like, I'm going to put you on the ground mentality. It just wasn't part of me. So I had good footwork. I knew what I was doing. I had all of the stuff that you need to be a successful offensive lineman. I had the height and the weight. I mean, I'm a big guy. I didn't have the dog. Echols has the dog, and that's what matters. I truly believe the dog mentality and the dog mentality and technique and footwork is everything when it comes to offensive line. And Echols has that and some. Technique is, it's just, like I said, the tape proved it. And I always say this, personally, offensive line, as I just said, less than most positions, but I see rankings, and I think it's a natural human response. I see rankings and I kind of go, 3-star. Okay, cool. Right. And then I watch the tape, and sometimes, and I'll be honest with you, sometimes I'll watch tape and I'm like, okay, yeah, he's a 3-star. I can see why he could develop into something more, but he's a 3-star. Echols, I watched the tape and was like, this guy is a talented football player that's going to help the Aggies at some point in his career in College Station. So Echols, great player, terrific addition to this 2024 class. Like I said, that brings you to 10 commits as we speak. The way this has been working, the time I'm in the next 2 minutes, the Aggies get a commit. It's just that time of year. So as we sit, it's 10 commits, 30th class in the nation, according to 24/7 Sports. I think that's going to continue to be on the up and up. So this 2024 class has a lot to be looking forward to, and I think you're going to keep adding guys. But guys like Lockhart and Echols are going to give you some talented football rosters down the road. CBS Sports believes the Aggies are going to have a bounce-back season, but not bounce-backy enough to make us fans happy. Yeah, so, CBS Sports, it's one of those headlines. You read a headline and you're like, oh, this is going to be a great article. It's going to be hyping up the Aggies, hyping up what this season's going to look like, right? So, I click on this article, and it's talking about 10 teams basically that are going to have bounce-back seasons. Miami was one of them, and I open the article. Texas A&M is the first team talked about. They were in the headline, as well. So I knew it was about Texas A&M. So I get to reading, and it says basically that the Aggies are going to bounce back and be bowl eligible in 2023. And I just thought to myself, okay, who cares? And what I mean by that is this, like, no one listening to me talk right now is going to be happy with a bowl eligible season. And when I hear the term bowl eligible, I think 6-6, 7-5, because it's like, obviously if you win 10 games, you're bowl eligible. I don't think that's, that's like, we're talking college football playoff if you have 10, 11, 12 wins. So I hear bowl eligible, I think 6 or 7 wins. And I'm just like, no, that's not what we want. That's not the conversation we want to be having right now. And that's kind of what stood out to me. I was like, I think Aggie fans are going to read this and going to be like, yikes. But now then I read into it, and their very last little statement from CBS Sports, the last thing they said was, bowl eligible is not enough. And they are dang right. Bowl eligible is not enough for Coach Fisher for how long he's been coaching the Aggies. It is time for a season, to remember. I know the 2020 season was fun. The last season was painful. So, there's been ups, there's been downs, but it's time for like a serious up. And now listen, I've talked about it. I think that serious up is coming, and I think it's coming this year. So I've also talked about the 2024 schedule and how when I say easy, it's not easy. There's no such thing as an easy SEC schedule, but compared to some other schools, it is a manageable schedule. So this season, if you could just win, and I know people, I made this comment and I got a lot of people disagreeing. So let me try this again and see if you all kind of see where I'm coming from here. I know we want to win now. I know we want to win a national championship this year. I get it. I truly do. But the way I look at it is like this. You look at I don't know if we have any people that follow baseball, but a team like the Cincinnati Reds. I'm a big MLB fan, and the Cincinnati Reds just went on a massive winning streak, and they're a team. Their whole core is young, right? Whole core is young. The whole core of that entire team is young players, and so I've seen a lot of Reds fans on Twitter talking about this is it. This is the year where we're going. It's, World Series bound. And I'm thinking in my head, okay, whoa, hold on. Now, in two years, when all these players for the Redlegs are developed and great players, okay, we can have that conversation. But I don't know if that's now for them. And the reason I kind of go off on that little side tangent is because I think that's where this football team's at. I think it's like, with this young talent, I think you could have a boom season and win 10, 11 games. I've said that 100 times. But I do think that if you could win 9 games and just have stuff click, have the defense be as good as we expect, have the offensive line be take that step forward, Wegman take that step forward. You do all those things, and this team gets better, wins 9 games, then look out for 2024. And that's my argument. I'm not saying I'm like, well, guys, let's not try hard. I don't want to compete for a national championship this year. By all means, guys, when I say guys, I'm talking about the team. Let's go take us to the college football playoff. I believe that it is a true realistic possibility in the realm of the world. I do. But I'm looking to next season simply because I think that's the year. I think if this team could click and win 9 games, I think the 2024 season could be something special, something to remember in the history books. So, that's my opinion on the team this year or next year. Some other things in the article, they talked about blue chip ratio, which I've talked about a million times, about how the Aggies have one of the best blue chip ratios in college football. Blue chip ratio usually leads to wins on the football field. And they also talked about another thing we talk about quite often, which is if Coach Fisher lets Coach Petrino run the offense and he doesn't bother them, that this offense is going to take a massive step forward. So, to me, this is a good article. And I think it was a good article that kind of reminded me bowl eligible isn't what Aggie fans want right now. Aggie fans don't want bowl eligibility. Aggie fans want 9, 10, 11, 12 wins. And I think it's time for the fans to get what they want. And I am a big believer that is a realistic possibility for something that could occur this season. That is going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Aggies. As always, I really appreciate you all tuning in. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Like I said, next week, I'm going to the Florida Keys. So we'll have a couple episodes. I'll schedule them before I head out of town. So if any news breaks, we'll talk about it when I get back. I'm going to be doing a lot of fishing. So if anybody has fished the Florida Keys, please leave some tips in the comments. I really would like to get on some fish. That would be greatly appreciated. But as I said, and I'll remind you all of that throughout the week. I just wanted to let everyone know so they can be prepared. But have a great rest of your day, like I said, and we will see you tomorrow.